The drama surrounding the Indiana Fever has spiraled into something no one saw coming. A storyline that feels less like a sports season and more like a political thriller unfolding behind the polished surface of professional basketball. What began as whispers of internal tension has erupted into a full-scale power struggle involving the owner, the head coach, and the league itself. For the first time in WNBA history, league officials have quietly stepped in to manage one of their own teams, and the implications could change everything about how power works in women's basketball. It all started innocently enough with success. The Fever were supposed to be the feel-good story of the year, a young, talented team built around their golden rookie, Caitlin Clark, who had single-handedly transformed the league's visibility. The crowds were massive, the jerseys were flying off shelves, and for once, the WNBA had captured national attention. But beneath the bright lights and the smiling press conferences, insiders say the foundation was cracking. Owner Steve Simon wanted control. His vision for the Fever was clean, calculated, and marketable, a family-friendly franchise built entirely around Caitlin Clark's image. He wanted a dynasty that could be televised, branded, and monetized, something that could make Indianapolis the heartbeat of women's basketball. But head coach Stephanie White had a different idea. She wanted to coach, not curate. Her focus was on basketball, not branding, not marketing optics, and certainly not media narratives. At first, the disagreements were small. Differences in how interviews were handled, which players were promoted in media appearances, how much access reporters were given during practices. But as the season unfolded, those minor disputes became open power struggles. Some veterans in the locker room began to feel like background characters in a story that revolved entirely around one person. Others grew frustrated that every question, every headline, every sponsorship came back to Caitlin Clark. And then the stories started leaking. Local reporters began hinting at a divide inside the locker room. Anonymous sources mentioned tension between White and Simon. Fever PR rushed to contain the rumors, but by then it was too late. The league office had noticed. Behind the scenes, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and her team began making quiet moves. Without a press release or public announcement, the WNBA dispatched senior operations staff to Indianapolis. Their job was simple on paper but monumental in impact, to assess what was described as a breakdown in organizational alignment. In plain language, the Fever had stopped functioning as a united franchise. There was no trust between ownership, coaching, or even the players. League insiders called it a soft audit. The officials wanted to review everything: player relations, team culture, internal communication, and media handling. Nothing was off the table. For most organizations, such an internal review would be a scandal. For the WNBA, it was unprecedented. Never before had the league intervened this directly in team affairs. It wasn't punishment, it was damage control. One executive summed it up perfectly in a single line: "This isn't about fixing basketball, it's about protecting the product." That product, of course, is Caitlin Clark. Whether she asked for it or not, every decision within the Fever now runs through her shadow. The ticket sales, the sponsorships, the broadcasting deals, everything is tied to her name. League insiders call it the Caitlin effect, a wave of economic and media energy the WNBA has never experienced before. And with that kind of power comes danger. The league's challenge is simple but impossible. How do you protect your biggest star without breaking the balance of competition? Caitlin Clark has become the WNBA's most valuable asset, but the very gravity that pulls money and attention toward her is now warping the structure of the league around her. The Fever, once a team, have become a brand extension of Caitlin Clark's influence. And when you have a rookie with this much power, everyone else has to adjust or fall behind. Sources close to the situation say Clark's camp has been in direct communication with league officials throughout this entire process. That's not unusual for a player of her stature, but it adds fuel to the perception that the league's priorities have shifted. Some executives across the WNBA are now quietly asking the question no one wants to say out loud: who really runs the Fever, the Indiana front office, or the WNBA itself? Meanwhile, head coach Stephanie White finds herself walking a tightrope that few coaches could ever imagine. Once celebrated for rebuilding a young roster into a competitive force, she's now being quietly evaluated by league officials for her communication style and leadership. Insiders say White feels undermined, frustrated, and exhausted. "It feels like walking into a PR meeting instead of a practice," one assistant coach reportedly said. Every move she makes, every substitution, every rotation, is scrutinized not just by local media, but by executives sitting hundreds of miles away in league headquarters. It's not coaching anymore, it's survival. Steve Simon, for his part, is watching his authority erode. Once the undisputed decision-maker within the franchise, Simon's traditional methodical business approach now feels out of place in a WNBA defined by viral highlights, influencer partnerships, and superstar branding. Pacers executives, who share the same ownership family, are reportedly growing impatient. They see Simon as too slow, too cautious, too tied to the old ways of doing things. When the league stepped in, it was more than an audit. It was a message. The WNBA doesn't trust Simon to navigate the storm alone. The man who once helped build the Fever from the ground up is now being told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. His legacy as a steady hand is being rewritten as a cautionary tale about losing control. The fallout didn't stop there. Word of the league's involvement spread fast among WNBA front offices, sending a chill across the league. If it could happen to Indiana, the team that drives the WNBA's entire media economy, it could happen anywhere. One unnamed executive was blunt. So now the league decides who runs our teams. The Players Association began asking its own questions. If the WNBA is willing to interfere with internal team operations to protect Caitlin Clark, what happens when another star rises? Does the league pick favorites? Could that influence contracts, playing time, or even trades? It's a slippery slope, and everyone knows it. For now, the league is keeping its supervision discreet, but its presence is unmistakable. Engelbert's office reportedly receives weekly updates from within the Fever organization, not about wins or losses, but about locker room climate. That level of monitoring is unheard of in professional sports. Some players have even started jokingly referring to it as big sister surveillance. They say it with a smile, but there's truth behind the humor. Because beneath the laughter, everyone knows what's at stake. The Fever aren't just another team anymore. They're the face of the WNBA's future, the brand that carries the weight of the league's image and financial hopes. Every controversy surrounding them has ripple effects across the entire sport. If things fall apart in Indiana, the league's narrative collapses with it. And yet the optics couldn't be worse. If the Fever win, critics will say it's because the league stepped in to steer the ship. If they lose, it will be blamed on instability caused by league interference. Either way, the narrative will overshadow the game itself. This saga reveals something much larger than a single team's dysfunction. It's a glimpse into how power is shifting in the modern WNBA. The league isn't just managing teams anymore, it's managing the story. Caitlin Clark's rise has elevated women's basketball to unprecedented heights, but it has also forced the WNBA into uncharted territory, where business interests and competitive integrity are constantly colliding. The Fever's situation is a warning for every franchise. The league will protect its image at all costs, even if that means stepping into your locker room to do it. For Steve Simon, it's a humbling moment. For Stephanie White, it's a test of resilience. And for Caitlin Clark, it's a reminder that with fame comes a weight that no rookie could ever truly prepare for. What happens next could define the WNBA for years. Will the league's intervention stabilize the Fever, or prove that no one, not even the biggest stars, can keep absolute control forever? Now it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think the WNBA made the right move stepping in, or has Caitlin Clark's influence gone too far? Is this smart management or league overreach disguised as protection? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into stories shaking the world of women's basketball, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this saga is far from over.